We are back for Recovery Monday. This is episode number 58. Headphones today because I'm going to have a special guest on. I need to be able to hear this person, so that's why I'm wearing the headphones. She will be on in a little bit. Let's wait for folks to start to show up. I have a feeling we're going to have a bit of a larger crowd today. Let me put the chat overlay up as usual so you guys can see each other. Cannot miss out on the conversations that go on in the chat. But I'm special, says Becky. You are special, Becky. You're special because you're usually the lone Twitch person, which I appreciate. So today we're going to talk about anticipatory anxiety. This is one that I know a lot of people want me to talk about. And I don't know why I haven't done a Recovery Monday on anticipatory anxiety yet. It really makes no sense. I will tell you what triggered it. Sorry, I probably shouldn't use the word trigger because that sounds like I'm being silly. But what prompted this is I got sent this book. It's a good book, by the way. I'll put this on my website if you guys want to check it out. So Sally Winston and Martin Seif wrote this book about overcoming anticipatory anxiety. They sent it to me months and months ago and asked me to read it. I just now got around to finishing it. And it's really good. So it prompted me to think about anticipatory anxiety and do this little live today about it. So hello, Katya. Good to see you. Charisse. Hello, everybody. Here we go. Our special guest just popped in. She's in the green room. We have a green room here. It's very fancy on The Anxious Truth, by the way. Unfortunately, there's no gifts for our guests in the green room, but I think she'll be all right with that. Anyway, so we're going to talk about anticipatory anxiety. I will bring Jackie on in a second. We'll do the usual where her and I will kind of chat for 15 minutes or so on the topic, and then we'll take questions and comments from the peanut gallery as usual. Mags is here. Dan is here. Fear Gal. Hello, Fear Gal. If you're in the Facebook group, again, I can only see Facebook user because of the way Restream does it. Sorry. So hello, Rhonda. How are you? Jason, what's up? Hello, everybody. Let's get going. We have 57 people in the room. I know Jackie is on a schedule, so let's bring her on. I'm going to bring on Jackie Chapin. Let's see. Here she is. Jackie, can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah. Hi.
Okay. Love it. Love it. So for those of you who do not know Jackie Chapin, Jackie and I kind of connected on Instagram. She is a therapist in California, right? LMFT in California,
Yeah.
specializing in anxiety disorders and anxiety and OCD. Why don't you fill everybody in?
Yeah. My name's Jackie Chapin. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in Los Angeles, and I treat mainly OCD, anxiety disorders, and also eating disorders.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
Jackie and I clearly speak the same language. Somehow we got connected, and I'm lucky enough to have all the smartest friends. So her and I have been talking about doing one of these together for a little while, and she was nice enough to come on with us today to talk about this. So Jackie, we're going to talk about anticipatory anxiety. I
Yeah.
noticed that you posted a Sally Winston quote about it. Have you
Yeah.
have you seen this book?
I have not seen that book. I have this book.
There you go, one of my favorites. Okay,
And then I listened to her talk at the OCD conference on anticipatory anxiety.
cool, very good. So anticipatory anxiety. What we'll do, by the way, Jackie, since I know you've never been here before, you could probably see the chat scrolling by. We'll
Yes.
we'll talk for a little bit. These guys are great. They wind up supporting each other in the chat. They don't even need us. We could probably just
Love
talk about
it.
whatever we want. But we'll do our little spiel and then we'll take some questions and comments there for as long as you can. If you got to bug out early, that's totally fine.
Awesome. Love
So
it.
anticipatory anxiety, that is that thing, and jump in anytime. That's that thing where like you know that you're going to be challenged on a recovery and anxiety standpoint, and then you start to get anxious about the fact that you're going to be anxious about a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sound familiar to you?
Yes. And I don't have OCD, but I experience anticipatory anxiety all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I'm sure again, jump in anytime. It'll just, like I said, there's a very informal conversation, but the fact that people get nervous about upcoming challenges is like super normal. Every human being will have that. I talked about that in the reel that I posted today. Like maybe you have a job interview or an exam coming up, being nervous about it, anticipating it is normal.
Right.
But a non-anxious person is worried about the exam, the event, the trip, the wedding, as opposed to our folks who are worried about how they're going to feel while they do those things. Does that sound right in your experience and with your clients?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's for someone that maybe doesn't have an anxiety disorder, OCD, they're afraid of the actual event, just like you said.
Yeah.
But then when it comes in with OCD or anxiety disorder, you're more fearing the fear that you're going to have at the event. So that fear is stronger. The fear of the fear is stronger than the actual event itself.
Yeah. And that's kind of the hallmark. That's what makes us different from the rest of the folks, you know?
Mhm.
what venue is this one besides Facebook Live? You could see this on YouTube also, by the way. I just noticed that. So normally, if I see them, I'll try and jump on them. So that's anticipatory anxiety. And I think it is, I've heard people say, oh, that's the bane of my existence. I've heard it's the hardest one. I've heard it's the thing that keeps me from recovering because I get afraid to do things and then I stop because I anticipate them so much. So it is a bear. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And it pairs a lot with indecisiveness. Like they go together sadly so well.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to talk about that for sure. Cause I think it's one of those three main, to me, concepts. And when I read the latest book, I was like, oh, they have all, there's a bunch of stuff that they wrote about indecisiveness and like, bam, dead on. But what would you expect from them? Of course. So anticipatory anxiety, people will think like, well, it's a special kind of anxiety. How do I get rid of it? And I think I would always preface this by saying, well, we're not learning to, there's no anticipatory anxiety switch. Like, here's
Right.
how you banish it.
Right.
There's no way to do that.
I wish, but unfortunately that's not
Right.
what helps. Yeah.
Yeah. So like everything else, we learn how to deal with it, how to relate to it in a different way, how to navigate through it. And then it becomes less and less impactful over time for sure. But it's important to say like anticipatory anxiety can hang around for quite a long time. I would have called myself fully recovered the first time I had to fly after my recovery work. I had a lot of anticipatory anxiety over that. So that's normal. That's going to happen. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, I'll just throw this stuff out here. I have a couple of concepts that I want to throw out and we'll kind of chew on it. So, I think one of the first concepts where people fall off the rails and they get caught up in the anticipatory anxiety cycle is not understanding the difference between planning and worrying.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. So that goes off the rails really quickly. Like, you can plan for some things. That's fair. Yes. No.
Yeah. Oh, I think, yeah, planning is like you're making an action plan and you see, you plan it out, you see the end of it, and you go and you do it. Versus worrying is not planning. Worrying is thinking of all the possible ways that things could go wrong, not being able to move forward with your plan. It's not action oriented. It's just focused on solving something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a huge difference between worrying and planning for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's where people get caught up. So that hit of anticipation rolls in when you discover that you got to do something hard, which by the way might be in 10 minutes or it might be in 10 weeks. This
Yeah.
same all the time, right? And so you might want to plan a certain thing, like, oh, I'm going to do it this way. This is, I have to make travel plans. I have to do this, I do that. And then once we get past the planning part, people get caught up and I'm going to keep thinking and running simulations and worrying and hoping and focusing. And that's where things get really difficult.
Yeah, that's where it kind of becomes a compulsion where it goes round and round. You never actually like reach a real committed action plan when you're worrying.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good point. You don't actually reach a plan. Or sometimes I think people, they're trying to find more plan. Like, I'm going to keep worrying and thinking and find something. And when you call it a compulsion, I like it because it's probably designed to soothe your, I'm so anxious and afraid about this. I'm going to try and find a way to make myself feel better about it.
Yeah, I think yeah, planning isn't really a compulsion, right? Planning is you're just coming up with the steps you need to take. It involves
Mm.
commitment, whereas worry is you're doing it to feel better, and it's actually not getting you somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah, I like that. It's not getting you somewhere. So probably a good thing to keep in mind as if you're in an anticipatory anxiety cycle is this making it any better for me or not? Am I
hmm
fixing anything? Am I solving anything? Or am I just living in the thoughts and the fear and perpetuating it over and over and over?
yeah. And I think are you noticing any of those like what ifs that are really common with obsessions? Are there any what ifs? Because that might be a worry versus a plan.
Oh, that's a good point. What if this happens? What if I panic on the plane? What if this? Yeah, yeah. What if is not a plan?
Right.
Yeah. I
What if
think another thing, I say this often, and sometimes it sounds kind of cold, is the other thing I would say is hoping is also not a plan. So sometimes people get caught up in continuous hoping. I hope I'm okay. I better think about it some more so I can hope. I'm hoping that I'll be but hope isn't a plan either. And you can't make yourself do better by hoping also.
Yeah, hope is another one that, as you say, it sounds like it's a way to reduce some discomfort as
Yeah.
opposed to just this is my plan. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to think too much about it. Because otherwise, if I think too much about it, then I will start worrying.
Yeah, exactly. And so, hoping sounds like a good idea. Of course I should hope. We should certainly hope,
Mhm.
but that can go off the rails too. So hoping could be just another form of worry also, I think.
That's a good point. I haven't thought about that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope is kind of tough. So
Yeah.
the next thing that I want to talk about is, so when you start to realize you're in a state of anticipatory anxiety because something is coming up again in 5 minutes or 5 weeks, could be either way.
Mhm.
And now you notice, oops, I'm stuck in the thinking loop. I'm in the thinking, worrying, hoping, thinking, worrying, hoping. I've made all the plans I can make. I can't make any more plans. Now I'm living an event in my head that hasn't happened yet. Where do you go from there? What would you tell somebody to do in that situation when you catch that? What can you do?
So I guess the first thing I just thought of, because I recently listened to that talk, was it sounds like noticing that you're in this imagination land versus reality is
Mhm.
one.
Yep.
Um, it doesn't necessarily help to challenge it, as I know you talk about a lot and we talk about, but I think
Yep.
just noticing, is my mind taking me, am I totally imagining stuff or am I living in the moment? Is this my reality? And then what I hear you and what I talk about a lot is just noticing, first being aware of it. Like the first step is, oh, I'm noticing I'm doing that thing where I'm hoping or I'm saying what if or I'm doing something to make myself feel better. So I think awareness and noticing what you're doing is like the
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. If you don't notice you're doing it, then you think you're doing something right.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you think you're doing something right until you know that you're not, which is really hard. It's hard to get there, you know?
Yeah.
I think once you have noticed, people will say, yeah, but how do I stop the thoughts? How do I put the brakes on? Well, you don't just put the brakes on it. You don't stop the thoughts, but I would suggest that this is where learning and practicing and working on refocusing into now, today, right this moment, can be really helpful. Not because you can suddenly be magically mindful and the anxiety goes away, but when your brain is demanding that you live in the future, you can say, well, fine, I appreciate the suggestion, brain, but I'm going to come back to now.
Hmm.
So I've heard people say, like, being able to focus on what is rather than what if.
Yes.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
not easy at all.
Not
But
not easy, like, it'll keep coming back, but it's
mhm,
about that being mindful of, "Oh, if I'm noticing I'm doing that thing again where I'm in the future, what are my values? What do I wanna do in this moment? What can ground me in this present moment that I'm in?" And
right.
it's not easy, it's gonna keep coming back, and it's annoying, and it's a lot of, you know what I mean? It's annoying, but it's like, "Oh, there it happened again. Nope, I wanna be with my friends." And really trying to commit to being like paying attention to what you want to pay attention to, even though you can't necessarily get rid of the awareness of the worry.
Yeah, you're coming into the present moment, which is the thing you practice. If we don't practice that and we just try to do it on demand,
Mm.
then it gets very frustrating and very difficult. Like, oh, I'm anxious now, so let me be mindful now. But I never work on that otherwise. It's not
Yeah,
going to work.
that's the point.
Yeah, be
And
very
it's
difficult.
and it's not about distraction. It's not about I'm gonna be in the present moment and hope that it goes away. It's I'm gonna let it be there because it's not gonna go away. And if I try to make it go away, it's gonna get worse. So I'm gonna just let it be there and be with me while I'm doing whatever I want to be doing. It's
Right.
like, hey, little annoying sibling. I like to call it the annoying sibling a lot, like your sister or brother. Like, okay, I'm gonna let them hang out with me even though I don't want them here, but I'm just gonna let them be there while I do whatever I'm doing.
Yeah, it's a good point. The annoying little sister.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I have one, but I do. So
And
that's a really good point, but that's a practice thing. And if you feel like, well, I can't get it right because I'm still anxious when I do that, yeah, correct. It's just a practice thing. It's a repetition thing. Unfortunately, nothing you can do about that.
and you can even cheer yourself on even if you are still feeling anxious because you can say, "Oh, that means I'm doing it right." If I'm still feeling anxious and I'm, doing whatever I'm doing with my values, that's
Yeah,
actually winning. That you know what I mean? That you're able to acknowledge, yeah, the anxiety isn't gonna go away. So I'm not gonna put myself down for it still being there. And instead I'm gonna applaud myself for having it and doing whatever it is I want to do.
well, I like that. So I'm not losing because I couldn't make it go away. I'm winning because I'm doing my life while it's still here. That's the
Yeah.
win. Yeah, and that's the instructional experience that changes the way we view this stuff going forward. Really important. Great point. Excellent point. So let's go on to indecision, which I love that you brought up. I'll throw this out and then we'll riff on this one too. The worst thing you can do, and I made this mistake all the time when I was struggling. So you know you have a thing coming up, whether it's in 5 minutes or 5 weeks, and then you decide to spend the next 5 minutes or the next 5 weeks going back and forth between, "I'm gonna do it. No, no, I'm gonna cancel. I'm gonna do it. But if I cancel, then I'm not recovering. I'm giving up. But no, I'm gonna do it. No, I'm gonna cancel. I'm just gonna cancel it." Make a decision and go with it. I think that is so, and I'm not saying that's easy to do, but
Right.
that waffling back and forth and keeping yourself stuck in the nowhere zone is so much worse.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
this is one of the ones I do. This is one of the things I struggle with is indecisiveness. Is like, yeah, making a decision. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Um, but the best thing you can do is making a decision, not turning back. And then when you notice you want to change your mind, you notice you're worrying, to just not let yourself do that. And awareness. Oh, I'm doing that thing where I want to change my mind, but I made a commitment, and so I'm just going to move forward with it.
Yeah, I think even if the commitment that you make, and I know this might be, you might not expect me to say this, but even if you decide, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to go to the family reunion because I don't think I can handle it. Okay, that's okay. You can make that decision. Now, what will I do with that? What plan will I build around that? What will I learn from it? What will I do maybe instead of that? So
Right.
I think people look at it as it's just black and white, like either I'm winning and I'm recovering or I'm failing miserably and I can't make the fail choice. And that need to try to win and also not not be anxious is really almost impossible. So if
Mm.
you choose not to do the thing, it's okay. Work with that then. That makes sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It isn't just about making the choice to do something. It's also using compassion and acceptance, or even being happy if you don't do the thing. Owning
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And what else can I do? And I think expectation matters a lot in anticipatory anxiety also. Like, well, I'm just hoping that comes back to the hope thing. I hope I'm going to feel great that day. Well, that's fine to hope that and maybe you will and that would be awesome. We'd all love it, but expect that you probably won't and it will be challenging. It makes it so much easier to relate to it when you expect it to be a challenge. And if you decide to not do the thing, expect that you will probably regret that to some degree. And then
Mhm.
what will you do with that regret? How can you use that?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
a tough
if
one.
I guess I have oh, I just lost it. I had a question for you about that, and then I just lost it.
Hey, when that happens.
um. Oh, so you said something about like which I kind of say too, like lowering your expectations. But do you think expecting the worst is okay, or would you say that that could fall into like a compulsive thing?
Well, I think this is where like my stoic philosophy comes in, like premeditatio malorum, which is the stoic said, wake up every morning and figure out the worst thing that could possibly happen so you're prepared for it. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. It can go off the rails in our community 100%. So I get that. But I feel like we have to at least acknowledge a challenge, not
Mhm.
a disaster. But so I think my answer would be acknowledging a challenge can be really helpful because it puts you in reality as opposed to just hoping that you won't be anxious and then declaring disaster when you are. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it's not helpful. Expecting to be challenged is a good thing as long as you don't turn the challenge into a nightmare. That
That's
make
good.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, you can't like let's say you're nervous about going to a family gathering. Instead of hoping everyone's gonna be in a good mood or nice or whatever, that's not maybe realistic. So instead, I'm gonna expect them to be what they normally are, which isn't that great or is difficult. And I'm still gonna, make the decision to go even if I wake up and I hear that they're all like in a bad mood or whatever, that you
Right.
stick to the choice you were gonna make.
And I think the experience you can have there is, well, I can handle that. I can get through that. And you might make plans like, hey, if need be, I can step out for 10 minutes and take a break and
Yeah.
come back in. That's okay. You can make those plans, but just don't turn the expected challenge into it's going to be a challenge and I'm incapable and therefore this will be a disaster.
Yeah.
That's probably
For
not fair.
some reason, I don't know if this is totally off topic, but for some reason that made me think of when people struggle with not getting enough sleep and they worry they're not going to be able to handle things or do things when they don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
It made me think of that, just that you can handle things even if you don't get enough sleep. It just might suck, but that doesn't mean you can't do it.
Yeah, I think almost everything you and I address comes down to the idea that I can't handle XYZ, whatever it is. And as it
Mhm.
turns out, you always do handle it. You just feels like shit when you do it. And
Yeah,
so you think you're not handling it.
right. But it's okay if you feel like shit.
Yeah, nobody wants to. I mean, I don't want to, but
Yeah,
like
it's not.
sometimes we do. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's important. And the only thing I would say to kind of wrap it up before we go into the questions in the comments would be anticipatory anxiety matters. Again, I keep saying 5 minutes or 5 weeks. The 5 minute thing, and I don't know, what your thoughts are on this, Jack, but anticipatory anxiety sometimes stops people from doing their exposure work. Now, I'm mainly addressing a population with panic disorder and agoraphobia, but
Mhm.
OCD is in the room also. So there's ERP work there. And I think in the case of immediate anticipatory anxiety, like this was me. I know I have to go out and drive today, even though I'm going to panic in the car. When I made the choice to do those things very first thing in the morning, boy, did that get better. So if you're having anticipatory anxiety about intentional exposure work, how about doing it now, if you can, if practical, as opposed to I'm going to wait till I might feel okay sometime today, till I'm ready. And then I will dread it for every minute until I think I'm ready before I do it. How about you do it now when you're not ready?
Yeah, I like the doing it now so much because the anticipatory worry, it's just gonna drag on. And it's kind of comes back to that thing you said about hope. Like you're hoping it'll change, you're hoping you'll be ready, but no one loves to do exposure work. So I love the idea of
No.
I'm going to beat this anticipatory anxiety by just doing it now and kind of almost like the OCD showing it like, hey, I hear you. I know you're there, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to get it over with now.
Yeah.
Not white knuckling it, but like I'm gonna do it and not let this anxiety take me elsewhere.
Yeah, I did so much better for me when I said, okay, I'm going to do everything in the morning. And I
Mm.
am not a great morning person. I'm still not. I'm a
I'm
reluctant
not
morning person. Yeah.
I'm not
But I'm like, okay, I'm going to get up and get my ass out the door and do this now in the morning at 7 a.m. or whenever the hell it was, pretty early sometimes. Wow, my days were much better as opposed to, I know I have to do it. I know I have to do it. I know I have to do it. I'm thinking about it. I'm gauging whether I'm ready to do it. That was difficult. That was a day full of anticipatory anxiety that was not helping me at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And
really
then if you
difficult.
do it and then if you do it in the morning, you also probably feel a sense of pride, right? Like, you're, like, walking around like, "I did it. I did that hard thing," instead of waiting
Yeah.
till the last minute.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, for me, I wrote about this when I wrote The Anxious Truth. I even called it the morning effect. I don't know if I invented that or not, but maybe I did. I don't know. But when I got to the end of the day, day full of avoidance was exhausting to me, mentally, emotionally, physically exhausting. A day where I went at it in the beginning, it was hard for sure, 100%. But the tired or the fatigue at the end of the day was a more fulfilling fatigue. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever. It was a sense of
Yeah, it does.
accomplishment, like, "Yeah, I'm tired, but I did some stuff today." So,
Yeah, I think it
yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I get it. So, that's kind of like we can't solve your anticipatory anxiety problem in 15 minutes or take it away, but these are strategies that you can use, things I think you can look at. Do you have anything you wanna add to that, Jack, before we go into the comment section?
I think, like, one other way that can be helpful is really trying to shift from judgment or figuring something out to curiosity. Like, you know what I mean? That idea of, you know what, I don't know how it's gonna be today, but let's just be curious and be curious about how I'm gonna react to it and curious about the situation. So just I think I love the word curiosity over anything else that you normally can replace it with. So
Yeah,
curiosity over judgment, curiosity over white knuckling, curiosity over resistance.
yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Easier said than done to,
Yeah,
yeah, like mindful, let's be mindful, let's be decisive, let's be curious, like super hard to do, but these are things we practice all the time.
yeah.
All right, let's pop into the comments and answer some questions. How long do you have, Jack? You got a buggy in a little bit or no?
I still have like 15 minutes.
Okay, let's do it. We usually go about 45 minutes max, so let's
Oh,
pop in
great.
here. Yeah, it's all good. Let's see. Oh, this is good. Let's pop this up. This is Katya in Russia. I put them up at the bottom of the screen if I can.
Oh,
I
thanks.
still have anticipatory anxiety when I go out with other people. I worry about them worrying about me being anxious. That's that's a take that you don't hear that often, but I bet it's more common than we think.
Oh, yeah.
I worry about them worrying about me being anxious. That's not the I'm worried that I'm going to panic. I'm worried that if be anxious, I'm worried what other people will think if they see me be anxious.
Right, I'm worrying about it's like kinda sounds like people pleasing. I'm worrying about how other people are gonna be feeling or thinking about the idea that I might be anxious. Like, are yeah, like, are they judging me? Is it gonna ruin their time?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that.
Yeah, you're probably right. I kind of like that. Or that's that thing where I'm going to take responsibility for ruining everybody's thing.
Yeah,
Like, okay, we're going to go out to the social event. I'm going to ruin it all. It's
right.
going to be a nightmare. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
know.
I guess I guess 2 thoughts are one is, noticing that you have that anxiety or noticing that you have that worry and trying to let it be there, but enjoying your time with your friends anyway. And then
Mhm.
the other thought is like trusting that these are my good friends and they're not, we're all independent people that can handle like each other's feelings. Like I
Yeah,
can, you know what I mean? Like I can handle my friend being anxious and I'm an adult. That doesn't mean that it's going to take away from my experience being fun.
yeah. And that becomes that sort of, well, you can be compassionate with other people. Why wouldn't you assume they're going to be that way with you?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, if you went out and your friend was struggling, what would you say? Oh, you're ruining my whole night. You wouldn't say that. You would help them and be understanding. And why don't you think they would do that for you also? So,
Right.
you know, we're
And
terrible judges of our own situation.
yeah. And people get a lot out of helping their friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, some
Yeah.
people like that. Some people like that they were able to spend the night, helping their friend out. Like, that's
And,
another thing.
I think that's a whole other conversation, but I think it's a really good one too, because like you're friends because you care about each other. And it's not a one-dimensional thing. I'm only your friend so you can come and drink beer with me and make me laugh all the time, you would
Right.
think. So I get that.
Yeah.
Good comment, Katya. I appreciate you bringing it up. Let's put up with Bethany's comments here. Not really question, but the worry opens up new possibilities that then keyword seem to require more planning.
Mhm.
Bethany knows stuff. So I like that because when you decide I'm going to keep worrying and I'm going to keep thinking more, I'm going to think more, I'm going to worry more, but I have to, it's so important. That's that trap that says, yeah, that's your brain saying, think of more things, find
Right.
something, dig for something. It'll make you feel better. What that
Yeah,
teach?
it makes you think you're being productive with your thinking, but really it can become that compulsion.
Yeah, and I think what's difficult for a lot of people, I do not know what that sound was. Sorry, I think that was me. um, I think what can be difficult is that people will then ask me, "Well, how do you know? How do you know when you're when you should stop thinking?" You don't know. There's no black or white. There's no specific answer. Well, how do if I stop thinking? What if I miss something? You might miss something. That's true.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's no way to know. Like you have to kind of feel that out. Anyway, let's see here. Okay, this is good too, because this is a common misconception. I believe, and this gets into like that metacognitive thing, I believe that my overthinking and problem solving are beneficial to producing desired outcomes. But I love the second half of this. Thank you so much. It has served me well in my career. Yes, being an analytical thinker, awesome, but now it haunts me. This
Yeah.
is an entire and I'm a huge MCT like nerd, to be honest with you. So I'm a big fan. Your relationship with thinking, I believe that thinking is my go-to 100%. And so I keep going to it until I discover that it's killing me. And I try to stop, but then I think I need to think again. And I get caught in this love thinking, hate thinking, love thinking, hate thinking, love thinking, hate. It's really hard.
Yeah, and I guess I'm wondering, is it more complicated or would it be easier to recognize, okay, if it helped me with engineering, then can I notice that this isn't about engineering and
Yeah.
can I do something else? So if it helps me with my career, then great. But if it's not my career, is this an opportunity where I can recognize this might not be helpful for me right now?
Yeah, which is really, it could be difficult because you're abandoning what you think is something that keeps you safe and produces desired outcomes.
Yeah.
But this is
No,
where
that's
it gets,
super scary. That's super scary to, yeah.
yeah,
To
yeah.
take,
It feels like rolling the dice or being reckless.
right.
Like, what do you mean I'm supposed to just do a crossword puzzle without figuring this out? That Are you
Ooh.
crazy? I've heard things like that before. But that is one of the things like in MCT that people get taught. Like, well, what else can you do instead of just trying to think more? What can you actually do behaviorally
Mhm.
as opposed to thinking? So interesting, really good comment though. I love it. This is a good one too. Hello, Paula. Let's see. I find myself not thinking about the event works well for me. I plan it and then not think about it, but my therapist views this as avoidance and views conscious acknowledgement of the anxiety by writing my thoughts and fears as, I'm sure we could figure out what the rest of that would be. This is a tough one because we don't want to counteract. We're not your therapist, right? So they know you, we don't. But I don't know. You have any? You want to not? You want to no comment on that one? I get it a little bit.
Well, I guess, yeah, I guess it brings up how, yeah, like, is you're not thinking about it avoidance, or it's you enjoying your life, and
Yeah,
it's just weird that it's not coming up for you.
I think that becomes a little bit of a theoretical orientation question
Yeah.
because I'm for you and I, we might say, no, it sounds like you got it because you're doing life and then you do the event. What's not to love about that?
Right.
If maybe we were more into,
Yeah, there
to,
might be like, yeah, like we would maybe need to know more about
yeah,
what it means to, yeah.
yeah, a little bit. That's a hard one to add. I mean, if your therapist is coming from a different theoretical orientation where they kind of feel like you got to find root causes and get in touch with your emotions to fix your anxiety, then I would understand that statement. But it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to say.
Or are there things that you are avoiding? Like, are you saying like, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a different animal. That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, that's not a good strategy either. Yeah. No, no, we don't
Right.
talk about that. Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Then your therapist is probably right.
Yeah.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
So I guess it
Uh,
depends.
Bethany says that emojis are not showing up on the chat. This is unacceptable. I will burn Restream to the ground when we're done. Let's see here. Somebody talked about that too. Let's see. It's always exciting when I read the comments and people watch me read the comments. Um, we're gonna try and keep it on anticipatory anxiety. So I know some of you guys want to ask about particular fears and symptoms, but we can't do that today. Well, this is Wendy Thorne brings up sleep. I always have anticipatory anxiety over will I sleep tonight, which is Jackie brought that up earlier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Or
being awake.
uh,
It's a tough one.
I
I
always have this anxiety over, will I sleep tonight or be awake with adrenaline and no sleep? And it's really, really hard. But again, is this helping me, or what am I doing in the moment that I actually want to be doing?
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a hard one. If you look at, I don't know if you're Wendy, if you're listening to my podcast or not, but if you go back just a few podcast episodes, I did a bunch of sleep ones, and I had Daniel Erickson on. He's a sleep physician. He explains so well how he deals with that sleep thing. It's not about your sleep; it's about the worry that you won't sleep and what will happen, like Jackie said earlier. So you might want to check that out. If you go to my website, it's one of the most recent podcasts in the last month or so. Check that one out.
ooh, I'll have to listen to that.
Yeah, sleep anticipation is a lot of people have that problem.
Yeah.
Again, if it keeps you from sleeping, Sylvia said, let's see here. I don't think it's okay to feel like shit, but then I often do anyway. Yeah, I think we're all with you on that. Nobody wants to feel like shit, no doubt about it. If you can't do it now, if you are anticipating an upcoming, okay, that's true. But you can't do it now if you're anticipating an upcoming flight. That is correct. You can't do it now. So just to clarify that, that is true.
Yeah.
I think I even
Yeah.
tried to say when practical, right?
Yeah. It's not always going to work to do it now.
Yeah,
The flight thing is hard.
that is
Um,
all.
I hear about the kind of, well, it's similar to the driving. Um, are there things you can do to get yourself ready for the flight that are maybe exposure based? Um,
Yeah, I think because people will say I can't practice flying, which is correct. You can't just practice flying, but I always say like, well, what else do you fear? You don't fear the plane, you fear the panic in the plane or the anxiety in the plane. So go do other things that make you anxious
right.
until you got to the point where nothing makes you anxious except that flight, and then now you're out of options. You're just gonna have to be nervous on the flight.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, definitely.
But I
Uh,
think this can be the thing about like committing to doing it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, like I know I might panic on the flight. I've done other things to try to practice, being afraid or accepting the fear or whatever. Me doing exposures that are interoceptive, or like bringing up
Mhm.
this panic feeling. Um, but I decided I'm going to go, so I booked my flight, and I'm not going to go back and forth. Like you know,
Yeah, that's good too. Yeah, I booked it. That's it. Here I go. And I've seen people say that. Okay, I booked my answers. I booked my tickets. Oh well, here I go. Which is
yeah.
way to
Oh,
go.
I did was someone who it's different for everyone, but they would actually go to the airport
Mhm.
because even being in the airport brought up anxiety for them. So that is one way that they practiced was like going and sitting in an airport. Um, to
Yeah,
look
that
after
can
the
be
flight.
really helpful.
Yeah, but it depends
Another
again.
thing, well, I've done things like, well, I can't. What can I do to practice for the flight? Well, how about you go to the movies? A movie is an hour and a half long. I mean, if your flight is 12 hours, I get that, but go to a movie and sit in that theater for 2 hours. Oh,
Yeah,
that's terrifying. Okay, well, start with the movie then, and it'll help you get on the plane. So, in a ways, there are ways you could try and go about that. Let's see here. Isn't this is a good question? Let's put it up on the screen. Isn't doing it in the morning a kind of avoidance of anticipatory anxiety? Just a thought because I am the same always the morning. It's a good question because you do get that weird. There's got to be some little bit of avoidance in almost everything we do in a way. We can't get rid of all of it, right? I would answer that and say it's not really avoidance because anticipatory anxiety is just more anxiety. You don't have to practice anticipatory anxiety. You're just practicing being anxious again. So is it a little bit of avoidance? Yeah, probably, but I don't know if we can ever take all of that out. No.
yeah. And if you're really worried about that becoming avoidance, can you switch it up sometimes? You
Yeah,
know,
sure.
like if
Yeah.
you're really afraid of that becoming something, then
Yep.
purposely do it later and see what see how you feel, you
That's
know?
a good point. That's the whole like recovering perfectly. Like, okay, you're gonna have to intentionally make some mistakes, or when exposure becomes compulsive, now
Mhm.
you're gonna have to work on not doing the exposure for a day or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But kinda like you said, if it works for you,
Yeah.
you don't need to necessarily practice anticipatory anxiety because you doing things that give you anxiety, that's the practice.
Right. Regardless of whether the whether the anxiety is because you're going out to do your driving exposure or your walking exposure or your ERP work, or you're anticipating doing that in the end, what's the difference? So you're still experiencing the same challenge, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But it can be different from day to day and it's going to change. So that's okay. It was a good question.
Mhm.
Good thought.
Yeah.
Um, More sleep stuff. You guys should go definitely listen to the sleep anxiety podcast because we talked a lot about that in a bunch of those. I did maybe 4 sleep anxiety podcasts. We talked about not the sleep, the fear that I might not sleep and then therefore I will feel bad or be more anxious. So go check those out on my website for sure. But yeah, there is anticipatory anxiety around sleep. Um, okay, this is good. Let's throw this up. I always love when people share their wins too. It's hard because sometimes we have to look over the big comments. Sorry, Jack, I'm hiding you. Yeah, there you go. Making a commitment to do the thing helped me with my recent dentist appointment. I committed to going. If I panicked in the chair, I said to myself, I will handle it in the moment. I went and none of the what ifs happened. Love it. Great
Yay!
job, man. Yeah. Yeah. Huge, huge win there. I like how she says none of the what ifs happens, but I still hate going. Well, fair enough. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody loves a dentist. But one of the things that I dig about that is I've heard people say so often the anticipation was far worse than the thing.
Yes.
So true.
So much.
Yeah.
I still get that about going to new places,
Mhm.
and I always end up enjoying the thing because I'm a social person, but yeah, I definitely sometimes the before can be a lot worse than the actual event, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is so true. And I think sometimes it's because of the duration of the worry. The event might take an hour or 2 or 5 or a day, but
Yeah.
the worry could be for weeks on end.
Mhm.
So I see where it's much tougher for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see here. This is Becky, my one Twitch viewer. I'm always happy that she's here from Twitch. If I miss something, will puppies die? It's we're making jokes sometimes, and I love when you guys get funny about it, but it feels like super urgent, right? Like this is
Yeah.
the worst thing in the world. If I miss something and I don't plan, oh my God. So I get it.
That's a good point the urgency. A lot of times if you feel a sense of urgency, it's your anxiety.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point there. If it feels super urgent and important right now, that's probably an anxious thought, right?
I think I did a post that was, um, if you feel urgency, it's your unless you're on fire, it's your anxiety or something like that. Like,
Ooh,
unless
that's
there's actually something happening.
yeah, it's really good. That's actually really good. Um, I see that evidently Twitch does have emojis, so we have Becky taunting Bethany because she can use emojis. Becky plans to panic on her flight to Amsterdam this summer. Sounds like a good time. Excellent. I'm going to kind of scroll here. I can't take them all, unfortunately. This is good. This person says I'm going to do a few drives to the airport, eat there, get used to being in the airport. Excellent. Love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you might panic in the airport, but that's okay. Practice.
that's good.
It's all good. Um, let's see here. There's a conversation about accepting dying, which isn't, I mean, that could be the ultimate anticipatory
Sorry.
anxiety, I guess. That's a whole different conversation. We'll do that some other time. I have talked about that. Like death anxiety is a thing. I
Yeah.
did a podcast episode on that. Go to my website and just search for death anxiety or existential anxiety. I've done a bunch of posts on that. We'll talk about that some other time for sure. Let's see here. I think we're kind of at the end of comments. There are a lot of great comments here. You guys are killing it today, but we just unfortunately can't take all of them. Near death experiences, every reader absolutely does. Jason is here. I've read the book. Sure, he said something on his lives. Yeah, I have talked about that. I've talked about existential and death anxiety. In a nutshell, I could tell you what I've talked about, and you go listen to stuff, I guess. Like right now, it feels really important because your brain has decided that a thing that is going to happen, we can't deny that it happens to all of us. It is part of the human condition, might happen right now, or I have to deal with it like it's happening now, or it's imminent right now. And so in a way, that loudness and that distortion for me, as I got better in general, sort of went away. And now I can talk about it for days and days. I think it's fascinating. It's a fascinating topic. But to me, it felt urgent. That's the thing that you just said, Jackie. Like if it feels urgent, yeah, yeah. Death felt super urgent to me. And now it
Mhm.
doesn't feel urgent anymore. Just shitty.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Hope
sounds
that
like
helps.
it made me think of, like, the whoosh, like, when you feel that whoosh, the fight, flight, freeze response, like,
Right.
it's so big in that moment, but if you can kind of ride it out and, like, wait 5 minutes or, like, give yourself some time, you'll notice that that whoosh will kind of slowly go down over time because it can't urgency can't last forever.
Yeah, that's true. Even urgency about the thought of death. That's true. As crazy as it sounds, I used to have to me, it was like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. I'm treating it like I'm dying now. And I'm
Mhm.
not. So like, okay, thanks, brain. I appreciate you reminding me this horrible fate we all have, but right now I'm doing this thing. So
Yeah.
maybe that helps. I know that sounds glib because it seems like that's the most important thing there is. How could you say that? But trust me on this one. Anyway, I think we're good. Got to hit
Awesome.
the road or what? Are we good to go? I'm so glad you came by.
Thanks for having me. This was great. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely do it again. Jackie, I appreciate you taking the time. So for those of you who do not follow Jackie on Instagram, you should totally do that. She's on the bottom of the screen there, Jackie Shape and Therapy. Um, I'll leave it there so you can do it. I will put it also in a comment on this video, which will stay on YouTube. It'll stay on the Facebook group and everything. The easiest way to come back and rewatch this is on YouTube because I put them in a playlist. So you can find all of these. On Facebook, you know how it is. They get buried and the search there is awful.
Nice.
So
Alright, well, thank you.
yeah, thanks, Jack. It was great. We'll see you guys next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we'll be here.